NFL, of course, is a quarterback league, and since the end of last season, two names have been the hot picks from this year's NFL draft. But have the stocks of both Deshaun Watson and Mitch Trubisky cooled a bit? Well, in Todd Mcshay's mock draft 3.0, both Watson and Trubisky have a tumble from his previous mock here. Watson falls from number 2 to number 12 with the Browns, and Trubisky slides all the way from 12 to Houston at number 25. Players heading in the right direction include O.J. Howard vaulting all the way up to number 4. And despite his combine issues, Reuben Foster moving up to the Bengals in 10. Joining us now to break it all down, the man himself, Todd Mcshay, here with us. Thank you so much for being with us.
How we doing? What's up, Todd?
Fantastic. How are you doing? You're the busy one right now.
Yeah, just for today.
All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start with the quarterbacks. Why the drop in stock for both Watson and Trubisky?
I think teams at the top, Cleveland at 1, San Francisco at 2, Chicago at 3, I think they're all kind of realizing that there's just better value to get at those other positions besides quarterback, even though I still think all three teams have a varying degree of need. Cleveland brings in Brock Osweiler. That doesn't mean they have the long-term answer. Brian Hoyer goes to San Francisco, and Matt Barkley certainly does not mean they have the long-term answer. And the same for Mike Glennon in Chicago. Even though some people think he can be a really good starter, we don't have any concrete evidence of that sustained success over time. So I do think these teams are going out and saying, you know what, we don't want to spend this first pick, this early pick, when we can get a Myles Garrett from Texas A&M, a huge difference maker as a pass rusher, and then maybe at 12 we can go get a quarterback if you're the Cleveland Browns. And San Francisco, Chicago, remains to be seen. San Francisco, I think, is the most likely of the three to possibly take a quarterback there. But in my opinion, these quarterbacks are more late first, early second round type grades compared to what you would have in terms of the top 10 and what other value you can get, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Usually in a draft where there's no obvious first overall quarterback type pick, by the time the draft rolls around, these teams have talked themselves into maybe this is the guy, and some desperate team trades up and makes a bad deal.
Right.
Goff, for example, still early, but why will it be different this year, do you think? Why this year will it be different?
I think the grades just aren't there. I think there's, I mean, last year I liked Goff and I liked Carson Wentz even more, and had mid-first round grades on them. Compared to these guys, I don't have a first-round grade on any of them.
I see.
Now, Mitchell Trubisky changed his name recently on us. Thanks, Mom. He, to me, the more you watch the tape, he has the game that projects the best to the NFL. But he's only started 13 games. And we banged on Mark Sanchez when he came out for only 16 starts. And now you're looking at 13 starts, and that makes you nervous. Deshaun Watson's just the opposite. Comes from a system that doesn't translate to the NFL all that well. He has room to grow in terms of full progression reads and throwing the ball accurately down the field. But what he's done,
plug and play.
Exactly. But what he's done, and he's 32-3 as a starter, was in 2 national championship games and put up 820-plus yards passing on this vaunted Alabama defense the last 2 years. So with all of them, Deshaun Kaiser from Notre Dame, even Pat Mahomes from Texas Tech, there's a lot to like, but there's 1 or 2 things that makes you say, I'm just not sure I want to commit a top 10 pick to them.
Speaking of Alabama, the biggest riser, I'm sorry, Stephen A., was the tight end O.J. Howard. Do you think he could be the next Rob Gronkowski in terms of a playmaker type ability?
I think he has a chance to be a really good all-around player, and I think a big difference maker. So who's Gronk? There's only one Gronk in the world. Thankfully, probably, right? But to me, O.J. Howard has the ability to be a top-tier, top 5, top 7 type tight end in the league in terms of pass catching. He can stretch the field vertically. He can run after the catch, and he's
You're a lot of Greg Olsen talk around him.
Yeah, and he's developed into a solid, I wouldn't say great blocker, but into a solid, effective blocker. So, you know, I had him going number 4 to Jacksonville, and it might be a reach. I'll be honest with you. I get it. But it was either Howard or Leonard Fournette for the team that needs some offensive help around Blake Bortles. Going back, though, there's only the highest drafted tight end, I just looked this up, 1972 was Riley Odoms at number 5 overall. So this would be the earliest a tight end was ever drafted. So it may be a little bit ridiculous. But we've seen Vernon Davis, Kellen Winslow Jr. was 6 overall in 06 and 04, respectively.
I was going to ask you about O.J. Howard myself, but let me ask you about what I saw in your mock draft with the Philadelphia Eagles. Christian McCaffrey, I mean, at number 14, you view him a running back going that high in the NFL draft? Explain to me why.
Because you're getting 3 positions, but really legitimately 2 different positions. He's not only a running back, he's also a wide receiver. And I don't say that about many people. You know, many guys, I always look at it like, okay, is this guy capable of getting outside the pocket or getting outside the backfield and running a route underneath and catching it effectively. I think you can legitimately put McCaffrey in the slot and have him go run routes like a slot receiver. And then you can move him into the backfield and run him 10, 12, 15 times a game if that's what you decide to do. And he's got the return ability. And to be honest with you, the combine stuff I only take for a very small portion of the process. But what he put up at the combine, those numbers were absolutely ridiculous in terms of the explosion, speed, and some of the questions you have. Does he have the lower body explosiveness? He showed it there, and his film and the production matches up. So to me, he's so clean as a prospect with the love for the game and the work ethic. I've never heard a coach.
Well,
Go ahead.
Then why is he falling to 14 based on what you're saying?
Because he doesn't have power. I mean, you're missing the power element as a runner, and you're concerned at his size, can he be a 20 carry per game back versus 10, 12, somewhere in that range? That, to me, is the difference, yeah.
Reuben Foster has risen on your chart, right, and on your mock draft. And Stephen A. and I have talked about Mixon and others as it relates to the Bengals, which is where you have him going now, 9 overall, correct?
Yep.
And how that environment, if a guy already kind of misbehaved around the combine, maybe the Bengals aren't the best environment for that guy. Why do you have the Bengals taking Foster?
Because they've shown a willingness or an ability to overlook other things, you know, the off-the-field issues, and to draft these types of guys. Now, Foster's a tough one because there's some stuff in his background and some things that scouts are really having to dig through to figure out what kind of crowd he runs with is the best way to put it. But from a football perspective, he's going to show up every day. He's going to work his tail off. He was one of the leaders, became the alpha dog of that defense for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. And on tape, the guy, he's everywhere. He's everything you look for in terms of a today NFL linebacker that can cover. He can run and hit, sideline to sideline, can really do everything you're looking for. So I think he's one of the 5, 6 best football players in this draft. If he doesn't go in the top 10, it will have a lot to do with what teams have found out and what their concerns are with him and who he'll surround himself with moving forward.
I'm a huge fan of Leonard Fournette. I'll be the first to admit that. But at the same time, I'm not oblivious to the fact that he only played in 7 games last year. Doesn't seem to be any questions about him. You're hearing him at number 6 with the Jets. You've got him on your board as well in the top 10. But a guy like Mel Kiper Jr. sits there, and he's the first to say he ain't drafting a running back in the first round. Tell me where you fall on Leonard Fournette and why.
I think Leonard Fournette, if it was 10, 15 years ago, could be first overall pick. I think, you know, he's that kind of just physical talent that you can turn and hand the ball to. Now, the reason I've moved him down a little bit in terms of grade and ranking, and the reason that I don't, you know, that he could possibly fall to Carolina or maybe a little further than that number 8 spot is, you mentioned one of them, is the durability. Can he stay healthy? And it's not, I mean, he's a big physical guy. Showed up at 241 pounds, I think it was, at the combine. And clearly he's strong enough to. But his running style, I mean, he takes so many clean hits to that body. And if you're going to get the most out of him, you want him to be a 20-plus carry per game back. So, you know, he's a tough one to evaluate because he's only going to give you a little bit in the pass game. And you're going to have a power run offense like you have with the Carolina Panthers, where you want to run the football and dedicate those carries to one running back in order to have enough emphasis there for the value to be worth it. So he's not going to be as high on every team's board. There could be Dalvin Cook from Florida State, Christian McCaffrey, depending on what scheme and what they want from the running back position.
He isn't in your first round, but a lot of people know how things are going to play out with Joe Mixon if and when he'll get drafted. How do you see it playing out?
This one's brutally tough because what he did is horrendous, and we all could see it, which shouldn't make it worse, but for whatever reason, it does in terms of, I guess, just the public opinion. I think he's the second most talented back in this draft, and I think he was a lock first-round pick if he was clean in terms of his character off the field. So now you've got to weigh top 15 talent versus can we even deal with, you know, having him, the PR nightmare that it is? What kind of human being is he? Can we overlook what he did and move on? So I think, just to answer your question, my guess is he'll go in the 3rd round. That seems to be where guys like like this who have character issues but are really talented wind up going, maybe late second. But I also think from talking to teams, there's probably only 5 or 7 teams in the league that will actually have him on the board when it comes to draft time. I think there's the vast majority of teams will just say, you know what, yes, we realize he's a first rounder, we're taking him off the board.
So quick.
But don't those 5 to 7 teams entice you to ultimately add him to your board just because it's those 5 to 7 teams that have him?
You have rules that you got to stick by. And I think most teams have a rule in place that we're going to stay away from this.
I can't let you go until I know, does Jerry Reese finally get left tackle right for my New York Football Giants? Yes or no?
Yes, Ryan Ramczyk, I think I gave him.
Is he going to hold it down?
I mean, this would be the 3rd time in what, 5, 6 years?
See that smile? He's not sold. Todd
only had
Mcshay,
1 year.
We're sold on you. Check out the full mock draft 3.0. You're working hard on that. It's on ESPN.com. Good to see you. We will see you again soon.
All right, sounds good.
Drew Brees and Cam Newton are 2 of the best in the NFL, but find out why one NFC South quarterback is a lot better in terms of choices than the other. And is Steph Curry the greatest shooter in NBA history? Jesus Shuttleworth will give you that answer in just a bit. It's First Take.